Hey guys, once you have the seats and the tabletops on your picnic table, it's time to flip it over upside down like this one is. So work together in a group to do that. They are very heavy, especially while this lumber is wet. And then our next step is going to be to put these bolts in so that it supports weight. So you're doing 2 here in the wide board on each side at a diagonal, and then 1 kind of in the center of this joint on what would normally be the top board or thin board. Okay, so while you're getting ready to put your bolts in, you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need a 5/16 drill bit, which I have loaded up in this cordless drill. If you're looking for those, you open up this and we have our drill bit sizing guide, mostly because I got tired of trying to get people to put these back in the right place. So the smallest hole that'll still fit through is the size of that drill bit, and you can tell that one's a 5/16. It's not the size down because it won't fit. It's not a size bigger because it will fit in this one. So again, that's a 5/16 drill bit, and I'll leave that laying in there so we can size those up. You're going to want a wrench. So these particular bolts on our picnic table are going to be 5/16 bolts, so they take a 1/2 inch wrench. And you're going to want a hammer. Okay, so we've got our cordless drill, we've got our hammer, and we have our 1/2 inch wrench to fit our 5/16 bolts. Now these bolts are going to be called carriage bolts. They've got the round top, and of course you'll need a washer and a nut. And it may be a little bit of a problem on some of these to get the nut to start the thread on. That's because they're coated with a galvanized coating, and that's what's going to keep these things from rusting. Then on your picnic table, when you get ready to drill these, you want to do this from, it would actually be this side. I've got a couple pieces of scrap wood here since I don't have a picnic table to use. And again, remember on the top one, you're going to drill right in the middle, and on the bottom boards, you're going to put 2 bolts in, kind of diagonal from each other. The further you can get those apart and still get them in securely, the better off it's going to be. But on top, it just goes through right in the center. And if it gets to where you're having trouble drilling, run that out, let those wood chips fall out of the way. Then there you go. And you could actually use a slightly bigger bit, but then the problem is that if the hole's too big, the square is supposed to catch and it'll let the bolt spin if that hole's too big, and you're going to have trouble tightening it. So you just put those in, and hopefully just some gentle tapping. Drive it in until it's seated all the way, and go to the back. And we're going to put our flat washer on. And we're going to get the nut started on there. And now, with this wood being wet, like it is most of the time when we're building, you can actually crush this. So just get your 1/2 inch wrench, and you're going to tighten it until it's snug, but don't go crazy on it. You can actually, if you see, this washer is actually starting to push its way into the board. And that's okay if it does that a little bit, but you don't want to overdo it. You really don't have to get those super tight. All right, and you can look on the front, and that's good. You should not be starting to crush this one into the board. It should just look like that, just sitting on top. If this side squeezes in a little bit, no big deal, but I wouldn't take it any farther than that. All right, so that's it for drilling holes and putting bolts in. Just remember, 2 bolts diagonally from each other, and before you drill your holes, make sure you go to the back and make sure you're going to miss the screws with where you want to put your bolts. And you do that, it takes 6 bolts per side, so 2 there, 2 there, 1, 1. And then the next thing you need to put on this, and these are already on and secure, is diagonal bracing. So diagonal bracing is going to keep this thing from wanting to collapse. And you don't want to sit on these without diagonal bracing. So there's a pattern that you cut those boards out of. 2 screws into that, so here and here. And normally, guys, I just shoot one into the top. And with that, you're going to want to be careful to judge putting that in, that you don't go through the top, but that you actually still hit the top. So a lot of times I'll take my screw and I'll hold it up, and I'll get an idea of how far that's actually going to be sticking into the other board, and then I line that up and sink that screw in. So that should be it for that. Another item that we're going to do when we're wrapping these things up, you guys will have to cut these out of your scrap wood, but I'm going to grab, I had some ready for you. We're going to take and just put some little boards like that, about 1.5 inches to 2 inches away from the outside edge, on the bottoms of all 4 of the seats. And we need to do the same thing on the tabletop, you know, obviously except for a longer board. It looks just like this, so make it all the way across. And then we need to take a big board and put it in the middle. So I'm going to go dig one up. All right, so here's the big board I was talking about that you'll lay in the middle. And the length doesn't matter. You don't want it to quite come to the edge, but almost to the edge, but it really doesn't have to be precise. You just square that up. Now with this, I would do like 2 screws, 2 screws, 2 screws, 2 screws, and 2 screws. And hopefully with those precautions, that keeps this thing from wanting to warp and twist on us. All right, so that's about it as far as like wrapping up your picnic tables.